Hey, so what's up everybody? This is John with SwingFit. So today is an exciting day because it is embargo day and we're gonna be taking a look at the brand new Taylormade SIM2 products. So let's hop in the car. Now there's no disputing that everybody wants to know what are the major differences between new product and last year's lineup. Is it just lipstick on a pig, or are there enough differences that would make you want to go out and give them a try? And that's what we're gonna find out today. So let's head over to the shop. Now, usually there's just not that big of a difference that will require somebody to have to swap out their gear year over year. And my general rule of thumb is that about every 4 to 5 years, it might be in your best interest to at least compare the latest and greatest to that of what you're currently gaming. So without further ado, let's jump inside to see exactly what these differences are. So before we dive into today's topic, I first off want to welcome any new viewers that's out there. So if you're just passing through, it's your first time, then definitely consider hitting that subscribe button so this way you don't miss out on any of the content that we are sharing each and every single week. Now, as a quick disclaimer, we're not actually going to be doing a full-blown product review or actually hitting any shots in today's video, but we are going to give you that first look, that first glimpse into the entire driver lineup. I'm talking one video, all three heads, SIM, SIM Max, and SIM Max D versions, all in today's video. And by the time this video is over, you should have a better understanding of not only of how these products compare to that of last year, but you should also have a great understanding of why Taylormade introduced some of the changes they did to make the product better. So enough chit chat, let's take a look at the brand new Taylormade SIM2 driver. Now, at first glance, I can already tell that there's some pretty significant differences between last year's model and this year's model. Heck, when I look at my paper of all the changes I was able to identify, I came up with 14 unique differences between the 2 years. So let's kind of peel back the layers and help you understand what some of those differences are. With the most noticeable difference being the missing sliding track. I mean, heck, when I bring in last year's version and compare it side by side, you can definitely see that there is no more sliding track in the front. I mean, literally, they've replaced that sliding track with one fixed single weight. Now, FYI, this fixed weight really isn't meant to be removed. Why? Because there's this little safety tab inside that set screw that really prevents you from taking a torque wrench to actually take it out. But hopefully Taylormade's not listening, because I did remove the safety tab and remove the screw just to see how heavy that weight was in the front. And that's going to be the next big difference, is that weight in the front is only checking in at 4 grams versus of the weight in the sliding track last year. This thing was checking in at almost 8 to 10 grams. And heck, I actually had a lot of adjustability. I can move that weight in the toe or the heel to really speed up or slow down that face rotation. Or even if I wanted to, I could double that weight, right? Go a little shorter driver in length, put a little extra mass in that front part of that head to really bring that spin down, to really make that thing to be a super, super low rocket launcher. But definitely, you know what, with not having that customization and that ability to do so in the current line, I'm really kind of curious, you know what was the logic or the reasoning behind that? And I'm sure it has something to do with redistributing the weight in the driver itself. So before we move on, there's 3 more changes that we got to cover in the bottom part of this driver. There's so much action going on here, but we definitely got to make sure we don't leave any stone unturned. So I really want to bring your attention to the shark fin here. At least this is what I called it. Well, when you look at the difference between last year and this year, you'll definitely see that the shark fin in last year's model, just how crisp and sharp these lines are, that's just because it was more pronounced. And if you ever seen last year's model, you would definitely have seen that, you know, know firsthand. And Taylormade received a lot of criticism for that being so pronounced. So what they did was they flattened the profile out, and definitely hats off to Taylormade for heeding that feedback because it looks a lot cleaner and a lot better. So, but definitely really, really good. But the other thing I want to bring to your attention is this shiny silver stuff and this bottom piece. This is all metal, and you can hear me just tapping on it, right? This is part of the driver construction itself. And the only composite or carbon fiber we have in last year's model on the bottom was this little heel area and the toe section, where this year, this whole bottom plate is all carbon fiber. And once again, what that does is it allows Taylormade to redistribute that weight to the perimeter, move that mass from the bottom of the club to the back of it. So by not having that mass so far in the bottom, we're able to affect CG and manage that a little bit more better. And the other way we were able to fine tune that is by changing that weight in the back of this head design. So if you remember, we went from like an 8 to 10 gram weight here in the front to a 4 gram weight here in the front of the new one. Well, we actually took that mass and just put it back here in the back. So the weight in this year's model is checking in at 16 grams, where last year it was checking in at 11.5 grams. So once again, the mass really didn't change. It just went from one location to the other. And once again, we know that if we can get that mass from the front of the face, you know, out of the bottom of the driver design and back around the perimeter and back low, we can affect CG. So I'm really kind of curious to just see how much this affects the forgiveness across the face, as well as maintaining those launch characteristics we need. And with this mass characteristics up front, I'm really optimistic that this thing is definitely going to be a high launch, low spin monster. And as we turn these things over, you're going to notice 3 big differences between last year and this year, with twist face not being one of them. I mean, definitely we still got twist face in the new model, but you will notice that there's 2 speed injected ports there in the bottom. And Taylormade removed them based on customer feedback to improve those off-center strikes, because customers reported that if you called it low toe or low heel, it just felt dead. And what they did is they removed them in place of one single port there in the toe area. You see it below just that little Taylormade T logo. And that's still where they will adjust the CT characteristics of the head design at the very end of the process, so that way the driver still maintains its conformity. But when you take a look at the face, there's 2 other big noticeable differences here, really just one, and that is the surface area of the face itself. You may not be able to pick up on it, but definitely I can tell you the face has gotten larger. So it's actually increased by 3 millimeters from top to bottom, and it's increased in width by as much as 4 millimeters. So that's just going to give you a little extra protection on those off-center strikes. So that way, if you're not perfect, then definitely you're still going to just have a little larger sweet spot area. And there's one last thing we got to look at, and that is this blue side frame of the driver design itself. I mean, this just isn't cosmetic. It's not lipstick on a pig by no means. This is practical. I mean, literally, this is an aluminum forged back brace, and it's part of the design itself. And you can see a little break where the white part separates, or it meets the blue part. That's just actually where it's welded together, because the face of the driver is one piece and it welds into this aluminum forged back brace, and that really just allows you to redistribute the mass from the bottom part of the driver and the top part of the driver to get that full perimeter weighting all the way around the head. And that just really makes this driver so dang on unique, and we can't wait to actually compare it to see how it stacks up against everybody else. So those are the changes of the SIM2 driver. Now let's move on to the SIM Max driver to see what differences are in that model. So now let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone to review both the SIM Max and SIM Max D version drivers. Why? Because there's just not that big of a difference between the 2 models, other than the fact that one will give you the maximum left to right correction over that of the other. But when you look at the bottom of these things, there's a lot of similar characteristics to that of its big brother. So I'm going to bring that in so that way we can see how similar these things look from the bottom. I mean, when you're looking at these from the top down, it even makes it that much more confusing, because these things look identical, and you really almost have to pay attention to the logos to really see which driver that you're talking about. if you're not paying attention to one specific element. And of course, I'm referring to that high MOI weight that is now in the bottom of every single driver. I mean, every single driver, regardless of model or flavor, will have this extra 4-gram weight, and that is definitely a big difference from that of last year. The only big difference is that where this weight is located in each one of these heads. As an example, the SIM actually has the weight closest towards the center of the face. So if you're somebody that needs maximum, workability and you want to work the ball both left and right, then the SIM driver would be the best choice for you. Now, if you're somebody who's struggling with a little bit of a block or push and you really want to try to get that ball to peel back to the left a little bit, then definitely the SIM Max driver would be a great choice because its weight is a little more towards the heel, and you can see where it's closer to that set screw, and that's just going to give you a little left to right protection, but not as much as a draw bias version. Heck, you can't even see where that weight is until I flip it up on its end, and you can definitely see that it's located all the way in the heel. And what Taylormade is saying, and that's going to give you the most slice protection whatsoever. It's going to give you as much as 3 to 4 degrees of face correction by just having that MOI weight all the way in the heel. Now there's one extra little difference between the SIM Max and SIM Max D drivers, and that is this back weight. The back weight in the SIM Max is the heaviest weight of all three. It's checking in at 24 grams. And heck, even when I bring in last year's model and we look at it, the weight in that one was checking in at 17.5 grams. So that's a full 6.5 grams heavier than that of last year. And really, once again, once we remove that mass, we have to redistribute it in other places. And what Taylormade is fine, by moving that mass all the way back, we can make this head super, super forgiving and give you maximum ball speed protection across the entire face. Now the draw version, it's checking in at 22 grams, and just know, once again, if I remove 2 grams here, where am I going to put it? Actually, I'm going to put the 2 extra grams of hot melt into the heel, and I confirmed that because when I removed that high MOI weight, I found a little bit of hot melt. So once again, that just gives you 6 grams of extra mass in the heel, and that is why you're able to get that extra 3 to 4 degrees of face correction that Taylormade is claiming. So guys, other than that, these things look super identical, and that is the entire lineup and why you might choose one head over the other. So in closing, we truly hope you found value in this information we shared with you today. And if nothing else, at least now you should have a better understanding of what was some of the changes that Taylormade introduced into this year's lineup. So if you have any questions or comments or still just a little unclear on which head might be the best fit for you, then do me a favor. Leave any questions or remarks in the comments below. And then definitely, please don't forget to take a look at one of these videos over here because you just might find a couple golden nuggets that could potentially help you take your game to another level. So guys, thanks for your support, and until next week, thanks for watching.